boy, we know Tommy Paul's specs. Thanks to my friend Michał Yonex, the insider, pro customizer and stringer, we know Tommy Paul's specs, and there are some interesting things going on there. Before I go into details, please make sure to subscribe because it helps the channel grow and it helps me dig deeper into industry, showing you all the mysteries and secrets. Okay guys, so let's go to the rackets detail to make things a bit more entertaining. I will also show me playing with the racket with the Yonex Vcore 98 Tour. Is it similar to Tommy Paul's racket? Not really. His frame is much heavier. Let's start with the frame, right? The specs I got, the pictures I got are telling me that he is using or maybe testing Yonex Vcore 100. Maybe the label is just to make fun. I don't know how serious the players are or customizers typing in the name of the racket. Is it a 100 Vcore or 98? I'm not sure. Maybe he's testing 100. Maybe he was and he is using the 100. Hard to say. I think because Tommy is an ex-blade user, 98, 16, 19 string pattern, I think he naturally moved to the Vcore 98 and his specs, and maybe with some recent results he's looking for a bit more power or maybe forgiveness. He's a great mover, he has an interesting technique, and I think it kind of makes sense that players are now looking for more power, more spin, more forgiveness. It seems to be the general anthem of 2025, 2024. Most of the ATP players are now flirting with the concept of more powerful, forgiving, spin-oriented frames, and some are switching, some are going back to their old and trusty rackets. Very interesting subject. Also Murray, right? Changed from his prestige racket to the Izon 100 and without changing much of his specs. One thing that maybe is a potential mistake is when you go up in power, up in forgiveness, up in spin potential, maybe you want to have a slightly faster racket, but at the same time, you know, players are made out of habits, and specs is quite important for being repetitive in feel, in swing. So I can understand that specs are kinda aside of performance and more to the technique, but yeah, it's very personal, I guess. Young players are maybe a bit better in a way that coaches already show them the rackets with lighter specs and say, hey, this is the max you can go with, and then they get used to the lighter specs and they don't really need heavier frames. Yeah, it's hard to go down. It's a bit easier to go heavier, I guess. But there is a margin for everything, right? Tommy Paul's specs, it seems like his frame unstrung with an overgrip weighs 315 grams, balance 32.5, and a swing weight 318 swing weight unstrung, relatively soft frame, and he strings his racket with Laxilon Alu Power Rough with a natural gut hybrid. The tension is relatively low, especially for a player that is also using natural gut, which we know increases power potential quite a lot. He uses it in a crosses, so it is a bit more for feel and pocketing rather than pure power. So one interesting thing about Tommy, because he has a quite interesting forehand loop. He tilts the racket quite a lot, he plays with his wrist quite a lot, and I'm thinking, when does it start and why does it start? Why players are tilting their rackets and their wrist so much? Is it like the coaches are encouraging them to explore this movement, or maybe as a youngsters they play with a bit too heavy racket, so maybe they try to adjust to the heavy racket and then they kind of start moving their body in a bit different way, learn how to rock the racket the way they want. It's an interesting topic because it's quite hard to repeat it if you don't have a specific racket or specs, in my opinion. Yeah, I think some solutions come from the racket specs, and that is why we should pay attention to the specs, because the specs can impact your technique, your body, your wrist, your acceleration, and of course professional players have to learn how to swing fast. And when you play from the start with a very heavy racket or too heavy racket, you start to adjust, you start to explore different movements just to find this acceleration. And yeah, maybe Tommy was playing with a bit too heavy racket when he was young. Hard to say. The heaviest I went regarding the specs this year was Head Prestige Tour, Head Radical Pro, and Technifiber T-Fight 305S customized by feel or hand, and I ended up with around 310 swing wave unstrung. The specs were quite challenging, especially on picking up low balls or serving. It was a bit harder to snap the wrist down. Yeah, everything had to be more fluid, less explosive. I had to learn how to use the momentum, use the gravity, falling down, accelerate. So that is why players maybe start adding some extra movements with their wrist to get a bit more of this snap, maybe. So what do you think, guys? How specs can determine your technique? Or maybe it doesn't matter and he would end up with this technique either way, with low specs, high specs, doesn't matter. Maybe it's just the way the academy or coaches were teaching him. That's an interesting thing, right? Guys, thank you for watching, make sure to subscribe and see you soon. Bye bye.